In a conversation I had with Stacie Capone and Don Downie, they asked me about this show, what the purpose was, why I was doing it, and we got into a really good conversation about that and also the value of an artist. So let's take a look. So the whole thing about this is really just sort of unlocking, like, not everybody's making $1 million a year or more being an artist. It just seems that way. Yes, so-and-so had a bit part on a TV show, and now tonight they're waitering. Like, understanding the truth that it's not all this... You know, when I started out, I will say I didn't think I was going to be like a big celebrity. Obviously, I wanted to direct Chekhov, so we all understand. I knew where I was at. But I thought I would walk out the door, talk to a few people, you know, pay my dues a little, and then I'd get funded. You know, even on a low level, right? Even if it was break even. And that is not the case. And I think everybody's under that little bit of a kind of delusion. And I also think that people are out there... Additionally, there is that fairy tale, like you hear, oh, that indie film that was made for very little money got, you know, famous, and now that person has this big career, and then you find out, oh, her mother's famous, her father is so-and-so, her uncle's a producer. You know, you find out all these things. That doesn't mean you give up. You know, I had a time where I was like, well, I don't have any of that, so maybe I should quit. But I don't think you should quit. I think you just have to accept that it's not going to be as easy for you or the same path, you know? It's just not. You know, if you weren't discovered when you were 10, you know, it's harder to break in when you're 30. Like, you know, depending on, you know, when you do things. So that's the whole point of this, is just to be honest, but be kind and inspiring. It's not to take away. It's just so people can face the next day and realize they're doing just fine. So if there's anything you want to say around my long ramble about why I did this show, I was also getting annoyed that people were charging people $200 an hour to give advice. And it's like, I understand, like, you've built up this knowledge. I get the mindset. I deserve to be paid for my work and my thoughts. But at the same time, it's like you're not giving that person anything guaranteed, right? You're giving them hope and a way to move forward. But you can't say, oh, no, you do this and that, and I do a Kickstarter for you, and then you're going to get $500,000. You're not, right? It's not going to happen. So that's also why I did this, because I hate when people get... I don't want to say hoodwinked, because I don't think all these people are horrible people, but they kind of are taking advantage of people in a not great situation, and most artists don't have that kind of money. So thoughts, advice, comments?
that just makes me think. I think that a lot of times artists, the filmmakers, actors, artists in general are not the best business people. And it's ironic, because I think you have to be a great business person. And one of the ways that I think that sometimes artists are not the best business people is that I think that you do chug along and you learn a lot of things, and you build a little bit of success for yourself, but also the business of being an artist or a filmmaker is hard, and the economic realities of things like indie film are horrible. Like it's not a super sustainable grown-up amount of money career for most people. And so I think that sometimes people with their weird business sense, like, figure out, like, okay, I know this stuff and I have to find a place to sell it, and who do I sell it to? And the low-hanging fruit is that they just turn immediately to, like, another artist, and they're like, you should pay for my expertise. And the other artist isn't the person with money. Yeah. And that's usually ends up not being a very sustainable business either, or sometimes if it is, it kind of comes off as a little bit of charlatanism or something. I don't know. That's my opinion. But
I agree with your opinion.
Yeah, I do too. I'm not talking about anyone specific. I'm not trying to offend anybody. It's just a thing. And I think that sometimes you have to step back and work a little bit harder in your business brain to be like, who else will pay for the things that this life experience and this expertise that I've built up, so that I can then take that money and go make my next film and go continue to, like, make art and, like, engage in the reasons why I learned this stuff in the first place.
Also, filmmaking shouldn't just be an art. Like, we shouldn't just... I don't want to be making money on the business side to then pay for the art and not ever get paid for the art, because also being an actor is a job. Like being a director is a job, being a writer is a job, and we should all be paid for those things. So I don't know, there just has to be a way to also think of yourself, especially I feel like actors undervalue themselves, and like, you know, you should also get paid for your work. And yes, not everyone's, I have to tell myself this every day, not everyone's journey is the same. You'll get there when you get there. I am where I'm supposed to be right now. And Dowd. That's my mantra, and Dowd.
We all tell ourselves those things, right? I talk about those things, and then I have days where I'm having a meltdown, like an absolute meltdown of why am I doing this? And I happen to choose, unlike what you were talking about, Don, I get the corporate world was stressful. I found freelancing stressful because kind of what you're talking about, Stacie, people would just pay you crap. Like, you know, I know DPs look for jobs because I live with one, right? And it's like $200 a day and bring your own equipment and also download the files. It's like, no, like I might as well, like I will make more money, you know, whatever, doing whatever other job that I can get. And I'm not going to enjoy this because I'm being taken advantage of. And then you get angry and defensive and just pissed off at the world. And it's not good. So it is striking that balance. Sometimes I know I do. And Stacie, I'll throw this out to you because you were talking about actors working you know, getting paid. And I, you know, when I first started out, I didn't know what I was doing. So I was hiring actors who, you know, were good actors, but didn't have the experience. So we were all taking a bath together, right? And then you get to a point where you're like, okay, you know what? I know what I'm doing. Or as an actor, maybe you have a reel and you don't need footage. Like basically you're acting for free in film so you can get footage so you can show people, okay, now I've proven myself, right? Same thing as a director and editor. You're putting together stuff. And then it gets to that point, right, where you don't want to do that anymore. And it's hard to find that balance. Like, I know I work for your company, which I love. So shout out that it's fun. But that's not making my art, right? That's still corporate work. It's just done in a freelance manner. So I don't really know what I'm getting at here. I'm just sort of rambling about figuring it all out, right?
Well, I mean, that makes me, the first thing that pops in my head, though, about what you just said, though, I think that I don't know if I've ever even thought about it exactly this way. I think that the goal, whether you're an actor or a director or a writer or anything in this industry, I think that the goal is to get to a certain critical mass where you've made work that it speaks for yourself and totally serves as your calling card, and then you don't have to be the one necessarily like hustling to introduce yourself and make work because people know your work. And I think that that's a laudable and great goal. It certainly is my goal. I think that the vast majority of people in our industry don't achieve that goal. And that instead, I think, like, I don't think there is a point where an actor is like, well, I have some material for my reel and then I'm done, you know, like doing stuff that isn't like a top paying professional job because I don't have to because I have that reel. That's not how it works. And it doesn't work for that way for directors or writers or anybody either. Like, I think you're always inventing and reinventing and stretching yourself and hey, that thing was, you know, you pour your heart and soul into a project and it's amazing, and at the end of the day you're like, oh, 500 people in the whole world saw that project and I think it's played out. Like, I'm not managing to get it in front of more people. Like, I throw it on YouTube and no one else watches. Like, there's a, like, and then you can either like be wilted by that, or you can sit down and reinvent. You can sit down and go, well, what's next? What's the other thing? You know, what did I learn about who liked this thing and how can I apply that to my next film?
Sure. And I think, though, I mean, yes, I agree with all of that. I just want to say that first. But I think, Stacie, what you're talking about is getting some pay, right? I mean, depending on the job, right? Because, you know, like, for example, if I edit for somebody, I edit, you know, people's like real independent, as I like to say, not, I have $10 million independent and still messed it up, but I won't go there. Anyway, a movie or web series or whatever it is that I'm working on, you know, I will give them a cheap rate, which ends up being less than minimum wage by the time it's all done. Of course, it's done around my schedule, so I get a break, they get a break, everybody wins, and we get to do a project together versus, you know, a bigger budget where people also don't seem to want to pay their actors, you know? It's one thing if you're on a low six-figure or less budget, like 250,000 or less, and you're like, okay, I'm working for minimum wage or less. It's another thing when people have these $500,000, $1 million films and they give all the pay to one actor because they think that name's going to make the film, which sometimes it does, but other times, it's still free on Amazon Prime, and it didn't do any better, and people kind of got shafted. And I don't know what I really want you to say about that, but if you have thoughts about that, it's delineating where's the pay, like where is that?
Yeah. I mean, yes, I think that often I think that actors give away their worth. I think that actors will work for free because they're like, well, I can't say no to this because what if they won't like me or they won't hire me again or I'll never get another job. And I think that acting is often a scarcity mindset, and becoming an actor that creates their own work helps get out of that mindset. I think that, it goes right back to building relationships and building a community. Like if you get together with a bunch of friends and make your own films, and you can do that for free, as opposed to working for someone else that's going to pay their DP $5,000 a day, but not pay the actors because they're not worth it, which is not true because you can't make a film without the actors. You also can't make a film without the DP, right? Like if filmmaking is a community sport, you can maybe do it by yourself. I don't know if you're Robert Rodriguez, I suppose, and you're making your first film, but I think he had friends too, right? Like you need to work together in order to get a good product usually. So
yeah. I agree. I mean, I think like Chris, who I live with, so he'll do all the jobs behind the scenes, but he still needs an actor, and I'm still there helping out. It's good to have another person there keeping an eye on the checklist or whatever it is, like chief cook and bottle washer. Oh, we need to eat, stuff like that, right? But it is very tiring, and doing that all the time is a lot. Especially if you want to make feature films and constantly be working, it is a lot, and that's what this all comes back to. It's like juggling your life and figuring out how to balance it all and not go crazy.
Yeah, and I think sorry, I keep
no.
I think that actors have to learn to say no, and it's so hard. Like I know how hard that is. Like. But if you start saying no, then maybe people will value you or your art, your craft more. And I think it's important. Yeah. I know also, like, just from us, from like the other side of the table, like, because with our actors group, like we made short films. Like, I think it's important to hold auditions. Even if you're going to cast someone, it's like if you hold auditions, everyone has to try. Like, you have to, you have to prove yourself a little bit. And I don't mean that. It's just like,
no, I know
it's
what
the same way for
because...
and it's like the same way as paying actors. Like, even if you're working with like, your friends, like try to pay everyone $25 or something. Because it's just about like the worth.
Well, I mean, that's the thing I'm dying to jump in on. Like, I'm dying. I think it's incumbent on us as creators to recognize when, like, we're all trying to get to the place, like, we all really want to get to the place where, like, we make a project and we work with really great people and someone pays them really, really, really well, and we all do great, and we all walk away from that being like, what a great experience, and I have all this money and it's awesome. And that's not the reality most of the time, especially in indie projects. And so I think when you're a creator, it's really incumbent on you to make sure that what you are giving is a good experience. To make sure that if you can figure out, okay, the most money I can raise is that I can pay everybody $100 a day for whatever, and this is what it is. That's great. That doesn't mean anything if then you're like, well, I paid you, and now give me your blood, sweat, and tears, and let's work 17 hours a day, and you should be grateful, is not the message that you should be giving with that. Whether you have a little money or no money or whatever, I think that you also... Not you. I'm always really conscious when I'm making indie stuff that people are donating their time for free or for much less money than they could be making that day someplace else. And I'm always attempting to be really conscious of like what's in it for them. And so sometimes that's about sharing the creative vision a little more. Sometimes it's about like, I have this great person who's doing costumes for my thing, And yeah, I really wish that everyone was in yellow, and they are dying to put everyone in green. And you're like, you gotta let them put them in green because they showed up for you. Like, you have to work with people. You have to understand what is in it for each of the people that are there and make sure that they're getting something great out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is a balance because, maybe yellow and green would be okay, but it's also bringing people on the same page, right? Because I get what you're saying, right? Like, I don't care if it's yellow or like yellowish green, that's fine. I get it. It's a slight difference, but I'm open to that idea. I'm not so locked in because that's not fun for people to work on. Like, I was speaking to an actor, I won't say who, because you never know. I'm so afraid of hurting anybody, not that person, but how it might be taken by people who hire her. But she works in television occasionally, and she said it's like being an actor on a TV show is like being directed by a traffic cop, and you're not there to put your own input in because they have a clock. It's ticking. They know what they want. It's planned. The director's there to tell you to stand there and stare in there. Not that they don't ever have a conversation with you, but that it is more like... and I haven't directed television, so I want to put that out there. But from what I hear from people, there's a little bit of creativity a director gets, but it's done before. So then when the actors come in, it's like you're going to stand there and you deliver that line the way it's discussed with you, and you do your job and you leave. When you work on an indie film, and I think probably feature films, and if you're a regular maybe in the TV series, it's different than jobbing in, but you really get to have conversations about characters. And I agree with you, Don. I've had actors come on and I know the way I want the scene to play out, and they'll do it, and they're like, I really wanted to try this other thing. And sometimes I always let them, especially with video, as long as you have time in your day, why not, right? And sometimes it really is better. Other times it's off the mark with what the rest of the film is building that they maybe can't see because that's not their job to see that. But yes, let them try it. Why not? I mean, what do you have to lose? And I really appreciate when an actor comes in. I actually get frustrated on the other end when an actor just wants to be told and doesn't bring anything in, like Stacie mentioned, I should have my nail polish bottles out during Detention 101. They should be on the table. We should have them there because it's kind of a little hint to her, and it's this. Whereas, I was just like, well, her nails need to be painted at the end, right? But you were like, let's build it, right? And that's nice because as a director, if I was on a set and I had a lot of time and I could think and I had a production designer and a prop person and all, but it was us, right? So when an actor brings something to a small indie film or even just a mannerism, it's like, oh, wow, like that's so great. And I always think it's important to thank them, so I don't think I thanked you for your nail polish bottle, so I'm going to thank you now. But because we were at the height of COVID, and I don't think my brain was fully functioning. But, just people doing that or being on top of things like, it's a small cast and a small crew, and it's like, hey, Shari, don't forget, we were gonna, oh, yeah, right, it's good to help each other out and like you're saying, just saying thank you. I actually, the corporation I work at, they actually did a survey of, other than money, how would you want to be thanked? How would you want to be appreciated, actually, was the question. And people said it would be nice if people just said thank you. A time and again, that was the top thing other than money, obviously. And when you can't give people money, you can give them gratitude. So I think it's great that you believe in that. And I'm so happy you came on the show, and I hope you come on again.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Shari.
Yes,
for letting us come
thank you.
You can learn more about Stacie and Don by clicking the links below this video.